Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Living Beyond Limits. I'm so glad to see your bright and shiny faces this morning, and so glad we get to spend this morning together in the air conditioning. It's so nice. So you all know I'm Reverend Jennifer Spear. We are a part of Centers for Spiritual Living. I welcome you, and for those of you online, I welcome you also. So let's begin the service today by reading our mission statement that's on the front of your bulletin. We are a sanctuary where people can discover and reveal the presence of God within their own being and experience their oneness with all life. Through the realization of this inner presence of love and peace, we give way to the evolutionary impulse of the divine and become a beneficial presence in the world. So I really think what we are doing here at Living Beyond Limits is we are giving ourselves the opportunity to discover and access our own spirit, to discover and access our own spiritual nature, which is none other than love and peace and wholeness and goodness, because our personality self and our ego self doesn't always recognize that and doesn't always know that. So the more that we immerse ourselves in the words that are spoken here and in the music, the songs that are sung and the readings and all of that helps us move back into that place of remembering, the place of re-owning our own spiritual nature. And as we do that, then when we move out into the world, we move out into the world differently. We move out into the world with more peace and kindness and gentleness and love and generosity and all of those things that enable us to be a beneficial presence in whatever it is that we're doing, wherever we are. And so I thank every single one of you for recognizing your own spirit, for doing all that you do to fan that flame and to bring that forward in this world, knowing that as we do that, we absolutely are giving evolution out picturing of that divine presence in this world. So thank you, each and every one of you, for walking this path, for saying yes to the call of your own spirit, and to being the light that you are in this world. Thank you. Isn't that song a prayer? Let me love in a holy, holy way. Well, I'll tell you, that's kind of challenging sometimes in this world today, with all the polarization that is going on, and the sensational depiction of whatever it is that is happening in the world through the media and through social media, through the incessant barrage of opinions and name-calling and slander. It can be easier than ever these days to get hot under the collar. Do you find yourself getting hot under the collar over stuff? And what happens sometimes when we get hot under the collar is then that we lash out, then we attack back, then we judge those people as stupid, as inept, as morons. Have you found yourself saying those things? Well, Ernest Holmes, the founder of this philosophy, said, "Your consciousness, which is the sum total of your thoughts, is the medium between the invisible cause and your life. Though you were in hell and you dwelt on heavenly things, you would immediately find yourself in heaven. Though you were in heaven and you dwelt on evil, you would immediately find yourself in hell. Evil is the wrong use of the law of life. Therefore, your greatest desire should be to use this law rightly. You always use it rightly when you use it constructively. You use it constructively when there is nothing in you that would hurt anyone. You use it constructively when you use it with love." You know, really, as spiritual beings on our very deepest level, what we really want is to live with a sense of peace, to live with a sense of ease, to have a sense of well-being. What we really want is to contribute to this world in a positive way, to have a positive impact on this planet. And as spiritual beings, what we really want is to experience our own spiritual essential nature, which is goodness. That's what we want at our deepest level. And I know for me, when I'm being judgmental about those people out there, I am absolutely not having a positive impact on this planet. Instead, what's happening when I'm being judgeful and name-calling and doing all those things is what happens in my mind and in my heart. I'm creating poison. And then what happens is I send that poison out to those other people. But what happens really is my whole environment gets filled with that poison, gets filled with darkness rather than light. And then what I do is I marinate in that poison. We all do that. And so when we are being judgmental or hateful or attacking back or doing any of those things that we do, it's not only affecting those people that we are in contact with, it's not only affecting the world, but it is always also affecting us. And probably really affecting us more than the other person, because the other person doesn't even know you're doing it most of the time. The truth is, we are not at the mercy of other people's opinions and other people's words or other people's thoughts. The truth is, we are at the mercy of our own thinking and our own actions and our own voice. So we're doing a class, as many of you know because you're there right now, on the book, The Four Agreements. And the chapter that we were looking at this week and what we're talking about is being impeccable with your word. And so I think when we think about being impeccable with your word, we think about things like that means having integrity, doing what you say you will do. It means being honest and not lying and not slandering and that kind of thing. It means not speaking to other people in ways that are unkind. But Ruiz defines being impeccable with your word in this book. He defines it as not speaking or thinking in ways that go against yourself. So that means then to be impeccable with your word means to not criticize yourself. It means to not judge yourself or put yourself down. It means to not participate in negative self-talk. It means to not tell yourself things like, I will never measure up. It means to not speak to yourself in ways that diminish your self-esteem. It means not to speak in ways that deplete your self-confidence. It means not to speak in ways to yourself that are disempowering. And it means to not speak to yourself in ways that keep you from experiencing or expressing the love that is innate to your own beingness. It also means, yes, not blaming and fault-finding and attacking and gossiping about others. But really, what it's talking about is not doing things that go against ourselves. But when we are fault-finding and attacking and gossiping, it still is going against ourselves because we are creating that poison that then we are living in that poison. So whenever we judge another person or blame another person or fault-find or put them down, whether it's another person or whether we're doing it to ourselves, it diminishes our light and it diminishes our love. And it keeps us from enabling ourselves to thrive and to grow and to unfold and to bring our best selves to this world. It keeps us from flourishing, and when we do it to other people that we are close to in our lives, it keeps them from flourishing also. So Ruiz says in his book, our word is magic. We use it as white magic to create heaven on earth, or as black magic to create suffering and hell. So how many people do you think it takes to end a conflict? One. How many people do you think it takes to create equality? One. You know, in Buddhism, Part of Buddhism is the Eightfold Path is part of that doctrine. And that Eightfold Path is a way to relieve oneself from dukkha, which is suffering, which actually means unhappiness or unease or stress. So the Eightfold Path is 8 different tools that you can use in your life to relieve that unease and unhappiness and stress. And one of those paths is the path of right speech. And so in Buddhism, it talks about right speech means to abstain from false speech, to not slander others, to abstain from rude, impolite, or abusive language, to not speak in ways that cause disharmony or enmity. And when I've thought about those and listened to those, they always seem like, these rules to be a really good person to sit with your hands folded and be good. Seem like a little goody two-shoes for me to not do that. But reading Ruiz Four Agreements and understanding that to be impeccable with your word, which is what right speech is talking about, right? Being impeccable with your word. But when I understand that it's not to do anything that goes against ourselves, it puts that in a new light. To not do things to ourselves that are life diminishing. It makes sense then of the path of right speech. So being impeccable with our word, to me, requires us from moving from those outside rules, right? The path of right speech is these rules, not to slander, not to speak in abusive ways, all those things that live in my head. But to be impeccable with my speech actually makes me move from my head to my heart and to listen within here as to what is right and what is good and what is life-giving and what does not diminish me in any way. It requires me to listen to my heart. It requires me to listen to my spirit. And it requires me to stand in my own wholeness. And what that means to me, to stand in your own wholeness, is that there is a part of you that has never been damaged and never can be damaged. The part of you that is eternal and whole and flawless, that cannot be damaged or destroyed, to stand in your own wholeness. Because what happens when we are attacking somebody back, when we are judging someone, is somehow we feel threatened by them. But if I stand in my own wholeness, there's nothing you can do to make me feel threatened. I stand solid and I stand whole. So, when we listen to our heart and listen to our spirit and stand in our own wholeness, then it perfectly matches that path of right speech in Buddhism. The consciousness of living a life in using wrong speech and not being impeccable with our word keeps us from discovering our own goodness. It keeps us from unfolding our own greater yet to be. It keeps us from bringing our light into this world. And it keeps us from being a beneficial presence. And so there's a story that I'd like to share with you. It says, there was a woman who wanted peace in the world and peace in her heart and all sorts of good things, but she was very frustrated. The world seemed to be falling apart. She would read the newspaper and get depressed. One day she decided to go shopping, and she went into a mall and picked a store at random. She walked in and was surprised to see God sitting behind the counter. She knew it was God because he looked just like the picture on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel that she'd seen. She looked again and again at him, and finally she got up enough nerve to ask him, "Excuse me, are you God?" "I am." "Do you work here?" "No," God said, "I own the store." "Oh, what do you sell here?" "Oh, just about anything." Anything? Yeah, anything you want. What do you want? She said, I don't know. Well, and God said, feel free to walk up and down the aisles and make a list, see what it is that you want, and then come back here and we'll see what we can do for you. So she did just that. She walked up and down the aisles. There was peace on earth, no more war, no hunger or poverty, peace in families, no more drugs, harmony, clean air, careful use of resources. She wrote furiously. She got back, by the time she got back to the counter, she had a long list. God took the list, skimmed through it, looked up and smiled. No problem. And then he bent down behind the counter and picked out all sorts of things, stood up and laid out a bunch of packets on the counter. She said, what are these? And God replied, seed packets. This is a catalog store. She said, you mean I don't get the finished product? No, this is a place of dreams and longings. You come and see what it looks like, and I give you the seeds. You plant the seeds, and then you go home and nurture them and help them grow, and someone else reaps the benefits. We want to live in a world of peace. We want to live in a world of kindness. We want to live in a world of love. It begins with the seeds that we plant. And so I'd like to share a poem with you. It's called I Wanted to Change the World. When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I found it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my nation. When I found I couldn't change my nation, I began to focus on my town. I couldn't change the town, and as an older man, I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realize the only thing I can change is myself. And suddenly I realize that if long ago I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the nation, and I could indeed have changed the world. So the title of my talk today is Words to Live By. And I'm talking about being impeccable with our word, and how when we are impeccable with our word, that it helps actually create a world of peace and of harmony and of love. Your example of being impeccable with your word, your consciousness and your example change the people around you also. Not just yourself, but your example. We talked about that. People follow what they see other people doing. They look to people's behavior to inform their decisions about what they do. Your example and your consciousness changes the world. A couple of weeks ago, I was driving at a shopping center that had lots of stop signs and pulled up to one of the stop signs, and I think there were 4 cars, and somebody went, and then another guy decided to go, and it wasn't his turn yet, and to go in front of me. And I threw my hands up like, what? Because people are doing this all the time. What are you thinking? And he turned around, and he gave me the peace sign. I thought he was going to flip me off. I really did. I was surprised. And he had like a 10-year-old boy in his truck with him. I thought, oh my gosh, I can do that. I can give people the peace sign when people are driving on the road in ways that are offensive to me. That's just one example of how our behavior changes what other people do. And so when we refrain from thoughts and words that diminish ourselves and that diminish others, we create fertile soil for those seeds of peace and of love and of oneness to grow. When we refrain from using words that tear down or devalue, it creates fertile ground for us discovering our best selves and enabling other people to discover their best selves. Being impeccable with your word, then, yes, includes the way that you think and speak about yourself. It includes the way you think and speak about and to your spouse, to your friends, to your family, to strangers, and yes, on social media. And so in class this week, everyone made a commitment of what they were willing to do to be impeccable with their word, something they hadn't been doing. And some of the things that people chose and committed to were saying yes when they wanted to say yes, and no when they wanted to say no. To create a nurturing environment for themselves at home. To be kinder to themselves. To do more spiritual practice. To not post anything negative on social media. So in order to be impeccable with our word, it takes paying attention. It takes mindfulness. And it takes commitment to doing things differently. And I think, to me, realizing the implications of our thoughts and our words, like we've been doing in class and talking about, I think for me that motivates me to do things differently. A couple weeks ago, my spouse, Colleen, has been in the process of emptying out her parents' house and getting it ready to sell and putting it on the market. And it was, 3 weeks ago or something, and I was rat at her about it's taking too long. Why is this taking so long? Why aren't you doing it this way? Why didn't you do this? And she turns around, she looks at me, and she goes, you know what? This is not helpful. That was I was like, oh, it's not helpful, is it? It's my opinion, but it's not helpful. So what if the question that we used with ourselves and that we lived with is, what I'm saying or thinking helpful in any given moment? Is this helpful? What if we let that be our compass? What if we lived in the question, is what I'm thinking or saying promoting greater good in this world? Is it making a difference, a positive difference? Is it life supportive? Is it uplifting? Is it expansive? Does it sit right with my heart if I check in with my heart? And if it doesn't, drop it. Don't participate in that. You know, years ago when I was in my 20s, I was going to therapy. And I came from a yelling household. People yelled and screamed and threw things and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, that's what I did when I was young. And in therapy, and I remember my therapist asking me, having me get quiet and go in and ask my head, what does it have to say about yelling at people? And I said, yelling at my partner, what does it say about yelling? And I said, in my head it says, it's not okay to yell at her. And then she said, now I want you to move into your heart, and what does your heart have to say? And I went there and I listened, and I said, it's not okay to yell at anyone ever. Your heart has a wisdom that your head doesn't have. And it will always lead you on the right path. But it takes listening to it. It takes getting out of our ego and out of our righteousness and out of making them wrong to listen to your spirit, to listen to your heart. And so my invitation to you this week is, first of all, to stay awake. Pay attention to what you're thinking and what you're saying. Notice that. And then to be impeccable with your word. To not say anything that goes against yourself or that goes against other people. To use words that uplift, words that are life supportive, words that bring greater good forward in this world. And as a result of that, you will be supporting yourself and others in unfolding their own greater yet to be. You will be experiencing greater peace and greater ease and a greater sense of well-being within yourself. And so I'm going to actually close by reading this poem to you one more time. I wanted to change the world. When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I found it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my nation. When I found I couldn't change the nation, I began to focus on my town. I couldn't change the town, and as an older man, I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realize the only thing I can change is myself. And suddenly I realized that if long ago I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the nation. And indeed, I could have changed the world. And so blessings to all of you on this path of awakening to your own spirit and to be bringing that into this world in a way that is beneficial and that is healing both to you and to the whole. Blessings to all of you. And so I invite you to join me in an affirmative prayer as we turn our attention to the capital T truth. The capital T truth that no matter where we are, no matter what we are doing, we are immersed in this infinite presence. This presence that is a presence of boundless good. This presence that is the very energy of life itself, that is intelligence, that expresses as harmony and order, that is the very fabric of love, that it is peace and the truth of wholeness, and that it is my life, it is your life, it is all life. And it is that one presence right now that is expressing itself through each one of us and through humanity itself. That we can never be separate or apart from the allness, the fullness of that which the divine is, this absoluteness, for it is the essence of everything. And so today we just simply remind ourselves of that truth. And in doing so, we lean into our own wholeness and our own goodness, our own enoughness, our own strength and fortitude, and the love that lives inside of us all of the time. And so today we bring that love and wisdom into our lives in a way that benefits us, benefits our families and our neighbors and our city and our country and this entire world. For we are inspired from on high. We are inspired by that infinite presence that lives within us. And so today we come to this world as a beneficial presence. And I speak this word about every single person on this planet, including every presidential candidate, every politician, every world leader, every decision maker, knowing that the intelligence and wisdom of spirit speaks to their hearts and to their minds, of their own wholeness, speaks to them of the love that unifies us all, speaks as truth, as goodness. And that right now, that presence is leading every single one of us, leading us to the perfect decisions, the perfect choices, and the perfect outcomes. I speak this word knowing abundance is the truth for every person on this planet, that peace is in every heart and in every home, that wisdom guides each person, and that truly we are all connected to each other because we are all part of the one. And so I release this prayer into the creative law of the universe, knowing that it is unfolding itself right now. And so we just sit back and observe that in great anticipation and in absolute faith. And I release this prayer, and I invite you to join me in saying, and so it is. So I want invite you to actually, Jonathan, our sound tech, is out of town right now. He edits and then posts those talks. I'm hoping that it'll get posted Monday, but to look for that on our YouTube channel and share this talk with your friends. Send your friends this way. I think that the things that we are talking about are so important right now, and that people need this in this world that is challenging to be in right now. So share those talks, invite a friend to come with you, someone that you think might benefit from this. The other invitations are the last Sunday of this month, we're having a picnic and going to do service in the park again, that we're still looking for a new home. We actually received a donation from one of my clients that is going to help us, so it's not as urgent as it was, but we are still looking for a new home. Pat and Mike are doing their homeless project. And just to let you know, the practitioners are here for prayer support. If you would like prayer, will you raise your hand if you're a practitioner in this room? Practitioners are happy to sit down and do a prayer with you. We have prayer shawls in the back that you can take and gift to someone or yourself. They will pray over them before you leave. And to follow us on social media and like us on Facebook and share our posts on Instagram. And so I invite you to repeat after me. Good fills my life now. I recognize it. I savor it. I own it. I live it. And so it is.